Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara. We talk about TV shows here. The year is 2021. The name of the show, Babylon 5. This is season 3, episode 12. It's called Sick Transit Veer. So, full spoilers for the episode as always, and it is a very Veer heavy episode in fact. To the point where it felt like Veer and Londo's plots were completely separate to begin with. They intersected once he was back on the station, but this may be the most Veer-centric episode we've ever had. He has so much plot in this, so we'll get into it. We've got arranged marriages, and of course, Tara's favourite thing, which is the continual potential romance between one John Sheridan and one Ambassador Delenn.
This episode was torture. Torture.
Yes, Tara texted me that when she was watching, said this is torture, and I was like, wait, is this a bad episode? And then when it got to the romantic stuff with them, I thought, oh, see, it's a tease. It's
I thought I was gonna get it.
It's a heartthrob tease, is what it is.
These two.
It's sweet. They had a lot of sweet moments in this.
They sure did.
I mean, we could start. I mean, it's kind of separart from everything else, so I suppose we could start.
No,
there.
we should start with this. This is the most important thing.
Okay, we'll start.
We can get to Veer's Oscar Schindler storyline after.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought of Schindler's List when it mentioned what he was doing when it was revealed later on. But yes,
I mean, even some of the lines in it were like straight out of Schindler's List.
I mean, this show's not afraid to have parallels to things, both fictional and real. You know, it's just obviously had things that parallel political figures. Paralleled again. Wars, real conflicts, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Get back to the romance.
So Sheridan and Delenn are discussing plans, and Sheridan points out that it's a quiet period because Clark's so busy on Earth dealing with stuff there. They've got a little bit of a quiet period before they're going to be in the heat again. No pun intended. And Sheridan says, well, we should take advantage of it. We should take advantage of this, and, can I see you tonight? And because he points out that every time he's seen her recently, it's always been, there's there's a big fight happening, they're in conflict, they're having these serious debates about things.
Finally, there's some downtime.
And he says,
we're not at war.
Can I see you tonight? Which Delenn smiles and says, are you not seeing me now? But in a genuine, not like a, because I feel like if a human said that,
have I become translucent?
If a human said this, it would basically be, I'm not flirting with you, piss it off. But from her, it's a genuine, she doesn't understand that he's trying to ask her out, right? This is the beauty of it. And he says, well, no, it's a more intimate setting. He wants to see her maybe in a different light, as he says, candlelight perhaps.
Yes.
You look far too happy about this right now.
It was some good development. I thought it was that whole scene. I was smiling ear to ear, like, they're flirting, they're extra flirty, and then they're just coming out and saying like, let's have a date tonight without Lanier.
Let's not have. I will prepare dinner, and he tries to make what she had for him when he had dinner at her place.
Larn looks like tofu.
Yeah, and they tried to eat it. It looked very. Is tofu as spongy as that? It looked like when she bit into it, it looked very spongy.
Yeah, tofu's basically a brick, a spongy brick.
Yeah,
tastes like whatever you cook it in, but it's kind of bland otherwise.
Yeah, but she has to pretend to like it, tries to distract him and doses it with lots.
I like that picture over there. Salt and pepper. I would think that they would have like a very bland palate, and humans would be known to have things that are too salty and spicy and oily and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe that's what she's trying to counteract. Maybe it is too oily and too
sweet.
Yeah, and she's like trying to bring
too
it back
much
down
sugar, maple syrup, and chocolate. And
So, but that's a really fun sequence. Obviously, by that point, Sheridan gets tied back into the main plot. But they do have a near kiss after he gets injured. He gets sliced at one point. Nothing serious, but his arms hurt, and he can't button up his uniform.
Poor shirt didn't make it.
Yeah, he can't button up his uniform, and she goes to help him, and so she's in close and she's doing the buttons.
They're kind of bickering a little bit like a couple, but cutesy.
Yes, and then they start to get really close, and they look.
He grabs her hand.
Yes,
they look at each other in the eyes. They talk about how something's in the air right now, and Sheridan has that big smile, and they lean in, and it's gonna happen, and then wouldn't you know it,
Ivanova, who is, I don't know, turning into something of a cock block in this show in general. I feel like this is our defining moment.
I mean, she did intervene with the naked lady in his quarters, which I think he was appreciative of.
Well, he didn't want to go through with that though, right? That was something he was
appreciative of.
He was, yeah. So, but this is becoming a trend. Ivanova showing up when he's with someone in an intimate setting. Maybe that's even an intentional running gag at this point, where she's done it again, but this time he actually wants the kiss. He wants to be intimate. He wants to be alone with Delenn.
There was she had an instant, I'm sorry, like I definitely shouldn't be seeing this right now. It makes me wonder, like, the Babcom systems, like, why it's so easy to just peer in on what someone's doing in their quarters.
I suspect that most people have to be answered, but because she's like command, she can like just like force her.
Override?
Yeah, she can be like, this is important. I'm going through it.
You think she would have learned her lesson after the naked lady?
That one didn't seem to bother her that much, though. I think it says something that she felt more awkward about this, because it's like, oh, this is actually a real feeling thing. This is Delenn. This is serious.
I don't know. She looked pretty awkward to me in the naked lady episode.
So that's basically it. I was talking about Ivanova as well. I thought so. The episode actually starts with her having the naked dream, not naked at school, but naked on the bridge. You made a noise there. Would you get something to say?
Yeah, I'm just like I'm just upset that I'm gonna have to wait like a whole nother season for them to kiss now. 'Cause now they know. They know that fans like me are like, you want this? You're not gonna get it.
So we start the episode with Ivanova having the naked on the bridge scene, and everyone is like staring at her, and it takes her a while to realize that she's naked. Then she wakes up, right? It's the classic nightmare, and
I've had that one.
It becomes a bit of a running gag. But what I actually really appreciate about this is that, especially once she starts talking to Sheridan and says so she's been having these nightmares recently, doesn't mention the naked one. She's too embarrassed to admit that one.
I don't know why.
I know, it's a dream. Who cares? And she feels really.
She's just such a prude, I guess.
And she feels really awkward when he kind of jokes, well, at least you've not had the naked one yet, because that one's then you're really in trouble, and he sort of walks off, and it's fine. But what I liked about this is that they've just changed their uniforms. They've just given up the uniform that they swore their oaths to. And as he points out in this scene, they're both career military. This has been important to them. This was a life they chose and mattered to them. And they've kind of switched to something new. So this naked dream, specifically where she does her job, is actually got more meaning behind it than you normally get with these, I'm naked in this place scene, or dreams, I should say. So it actually had more meaning. Like, it made more sense to me in the context of this, which is, she feels that she's abandoned this, so therefore she feels naked when she's up there in that uniform, this new uniform, because it's new, it's different. She's not like. So this episode, for her subplot here, is about her finding like a purpose here beyond just like feeling like she's betrayed the thing she's, even though she consciously made a lot of these choices, as he points out, there's a subconscious kind of, this part of herself she gave up.
I mean, she says she has like many of the standard nightmares, like teeth falling out or being chased by something or getting lost in a familiar place. But like, yeah, I think I don't know why she's so embarrassed about admitting the naked dream, since it's like a nightmare that everybody gets.
The only one of these dreams I've ever had, and I've had it multiple times, is the getting lost when I should know where I am. All the other ones I've never had.
Yeah, that's probably the most common one I've had. The teeth one only started happening recently. I've never flown in a dream. The naked one is definitely one I have a lot, but it's a bit different in that I'm like, or I start off fully clothed and then I realize like I'm missing more and more pieces of clothing and nobody cares except for me. And it's not like nobody cares, like, yeah, nobody cares. more like a nobody like even notices except for me, and I'm like panicking.
Is that worse? Is that worse than people going, hey, hey, naked? Is it worse that people don't even acknowledge it? It's like, might as well be a wall.
Oh, no one cares.
No one's even excited.
No, I mean, it's nothing like that. I don't know. I just have my own weird twist on the dream. Classic dream. I'd like to fly though. I've never had that one.
Well, this has been a wonderful
I want to be like
tangent.
Neo at the end of The Matrix.
But yeah, so
that sounds awesome.
Obviously, we'll get to what Ivanova actually does sort of like kind of start to do. It's a bit more sneaky. Oh, she's always had a little bit of sneakiness in her because she's always been doing, the growing the coffee. She's always had that little...
Yeah, she's had that, and she's, used the secret comm channels to communicate with her dad and stuff before he died.
So she's not been completely against bending the odd little rule, so it's just on a bigger scale now. So, a much more noble scale.
Yeah.
So, that's good. But the main plot of the episode that we're really here to discuss.
You mean the B plot?
The A plot's always the romance with Delenn and Sheridan.
Always.
Everything else is B plot at best. So no, so Veer... They actually, I didn't expect them to make a callback to this, but you remember when Londo was like fixing his report from Minbari? They actually make a callback to that where the guy on Minbar is like, hey, like, he fixed some of this for you, didn't he? He's like, yes, I thought I recognized that. And he tells this racist joke about Narn, which is a setup because the whole joke's about, a lot of Narn in a locked room, and then Veer goes to a room that's full of Narn, so it's kind of like almost a little setup for that punchline.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, I think more so the interaction he has with this guy on the planet was like, Mollari, he's from another time, and we don't do things the way he does anymore. We want to know the truth of what's happening. Don't sugarcoat anything. And, really being your honest self. And it's almost like he's saying, we're much more progressive than that now. And then he immediately goes into this like super bigoted racist joke about Narn. And then Veer has that moment of, oh, never mind, you're not, you are just like everyone else.
It is maybe a sign though that Londo is wrong about some things in a way, in the way, even in the current climate where obviously his beliefs are very different to a lot of Centauri, that the way Veer did it was right and Londo was wrong. It's like another sign that Londo's not as in touch. And there's a great moment actually, so one of my favourite little moments of the episode is when Veer's coming back to Londo's quarters, and Londo intentionally sort of like sets up a scenario where he looks really smart reading a paper for Veer to walk in, so he looks disinterested in Veer. He puts in a little production so that he looks a certain way to Veer, almost to make it feel like Veer's not important, so to belittle him a little bit and keep that, you're the apprentice, I am the master relationship thing going.
Yeah, I think the reputation of Londo, I mean, has been built up for a long time, in that he's been a bit behind on the times, where even like when he would talk to people about the good old days and stuff, everyone was kind of like, we're past that now. We're not, it's not just we need to accept that we're not great anymore. It's just you're like part of a different generation that still holds on to more traditional values and stuff than we do now. So I think it still kind of works in that reflection of, like Londo is still kind of an outlier, even amongst other Centauri in government. And then even though like he also has these, regrets for what he's done versus these guys who seem to have no regrets.
No, I mean, this episode, if nothing else, is a taste of some of the most extreme attitudes that Centauri have against Narn. Like, both between that joke at the start but then the more extreme stuff with the bride to be, which we're about to get to. No, I think that stuff's pretty interesting. There's some good character development happening between them. I do have a pretty big complaint about how it kind of skips over a resolution later. It kind of just glosses over some stuff. Which felt really odd to me in the moment. But yeah, so Veer's back on the station, and there's a couple of different things that happen with him to set up the plot lines for the episode. One is that Londo introduces him to his arranged marriage wife. So she comes out and he's all kerfuffled and he's acting all nervous. He doesn't know what to say, all the rest of it. But the other thing is that Ivanova notices that there's like Narn being shipped from the Narn homeworld to Centauri to do work, and it's, what was it, Abraham Lincoln? It was Abraham Lincoln with a slight twist. And they figure out that it's Veer who's done this because he's the only person there who would know it. Like, he's the only one there who's studied Earth history, would know to like do a fake Abraham Lincoln. And he says, "Oh, this is because it's a better life for them than being back on the Narn homeworld where they've been treated awfully by the Centauri who are in control there." It's presented as a nice thing. Obviously, there's some developments to this throughout where it then looks worse because it looks like they're all dead. But then it turns out that he's actually faking their death so they can escape. And that's where kind of the Schindler's List kind of element of this comes into it, where he's basically, having, helping some of them escape and like not be tortured or killed and so on. And some of that, like, because obviously they confront him about this when they think he's responsible for their deaths in front of Londo. I kind of laughed a little bit at Londo's reaction. It's a super dark moment, don't get me wrong, but it's super
where he
Londo.
Says 2,000 dead Narns is a good start. That's super dark.
Yeah, no, it wasn't even. It was the way he sort of turns to Veer, 2000's a great start. You've been taking the initiative, my boy. Like, he's really proud of him. It's the way, it's this the inflection, the way he kind of is like happy about it. But then of course it flips and it's like, this is what he's really doing. And then Londo's like super disappointed and they're like, "Oh, you've misused your authority and you've done things you weren't supposed to," and all that stuff. All super interesting. And again, continuing this path. And I think the fact that we know that in theory he's going to be emperor someday, Veer that is, not, I mean Londo as well, but Veer in this case specifically, does hopefully suggest there will be a change where Veer's ideals are the ones that are being upheld and put into practice, and so on and so on. And that's certainly the order you hope it happens in.
Or maybe the rebellion pulls through and there's an uprising, and then the Narn put Veer in charge. Yeah,
maybe, because we have that moment at the start of the episode where you think maybe he's in trouble because he's into a room with all these Narn. Maybe there's danger, but clearly you would suspect that no, they're all probably see him as an ally given what he does for them and what he has done for them. In fact, one of the more minor complaints I have about this episode is that when this Narn assassin shows up when he's with his wife to be, it really bugged me how no one considered the possibility that she might be the target, because that's immediately what I thought, because it was like such an obvious, like, oh, we're all assuming it's Veer. What did Veer do to like have this blood
plus
debt?
like the Narn like lifts his knife up to swing past Veer to try to get to the woman, and Veer has to go in the middle and stop. So yeah, it's pretty quick that you can make that assumption.
Yeah, it felt like such an obvious thing. So when the second Narn, who like the revenge like plea sort of falls to his brother, so the second Narn shows up. It doesn't show up to kill Veer. He shows up to kill her, and we're surprised to learn that she is heavily trained and is able to subdue this Narn and tie him up because she wants Veer to kill him, which it puts him in this really difficult spot, because there's a scene before this where they start talking about their ideas and she's like, "Don't blame yourself, Veer, it's the Narn. Whenever there's problem, it's them, and it's not really their fault, it's just genetics. The savage."
She calls them lazy, which is a really gross term.
She goes super bigoted, and it's really happy and cheery about it as well. That's the really like concerning part. It's not even like she says this all like it's a done deal, and as soon as they're all dealt with, the happy will all be like, "Did you just say you wanted to commit genocide?"
Yeah, basically.
Like, is that what you just said with a smile on your face?
Not just that, yeah. Just she seems to almost get off on it. Like, I saved it for you. Like, this will bring you pleasure.
Yeah, bring you pleasure, and also it means we'll be closer, and our ideals will be more aligned, that kind of thing. So she wants to initiate him into this, because where she's lived before with her family, they dealt with like killing Narn and things like that, and this is So
Yeah.
all this is super dark stuff. Although she does have a couple of weird zingers early in the episode, when she's basically coming on to him and says there'll be an anarchy of pleasure every night. Anarchy of what a weird phrase. Anarchy of pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Those entirely do have a way with words. But yeah. So my big complaint of the episode, though, I don't know if you felt this as well, but so it ends in a cliffhanger in this scene where the Narn's tied up. She's like making this big speech, and she pulls out a dagger and is like, "Here, stab him," and it fades to black. And then next time we see like them, like all of this is over, and they don't even really talk about what happened. It just, I mean, the assumption is that Veer refused to do it because he's Veer, and like this is obviously, it's come out that he's been demoted because of what he's done. Although Londo, still caring about Veer, and I think this is important, still hid the details from most people. He told them enough to sort of fix the situation, but did not throw Veer under the bus by letting them all know exactly what he did.
Yeah.
Which I think's
which
notable.
means that the marriage is still technically on because it's arranged.
They said they're reconsidering. He said the parents, but yes, it's been put on hold.
She doesn't want
now.
out of it.
Yeah, she seems to think she can still.
She can fix him.
Usually in a movie or a TV show, when there's a romance like that where the woman's like, "I can fix him," it's usually because he's got a drinking problem or he's a hard ass or something. Like, no, in this case, it's like, no, I need to make him more of a racist. That's the fixing that is going to take place. I mean, we've always been rooting for Veer anyway. I think this episode obviously went a long way to further just solidify this is who he is, and this is not like he's standing up for what he believes in. And Londo knows what he believes in now, and I think that relationship, and he's staying in the station now, he's not going anywhere now, he's back under Londo's care because Londo needs to keep an eye on him, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much of this will get through to Londo, since he knows that one day Veer will be emperor. So like, is that the way that the Centauri government will be headed anyway, and he's on the wrong side of history?
That's what I mean. We've been saying for seasons at this point that Veer is Londo's conscience. That's what it represents, and you would like to think, that if nothing else, if we were to get anything resembling a happy ending for Londo, it would be him realizing that Veer isn't his idiot apprentice who's wrong about things. It's that he's actually right, and that his heart and his empathy is something to be aspired to. Like, if he learns anything along those lines, if he admits that Veer's right in a general sense at some point, then that moment will hit. That'll be like a sing home moment of like, oh, Londo just realized something, and he's progressed and he's learned, and that'll be a big deal.
Yeah. First, he has to choose not to kill the eye that cannot see or something, and I can't remember the prophecy.
Oh yeah, we'll get to the prophecies. Don't worry. I'm sure they'll come up.
Yeah, before the Veer stuff happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, good stuff. He's got a few scenes with other characters as well, though, because he is darting around various plots because he's been questioned about these other things. And in one of the scenes when he goes to Ivanova, he starts asking for advice, because this is before he knows his wife. Because this is the thing, he's really like against the arranged marriage at first, because he's like, no, I want to marry someone because I love them, not because they've just been forced upon me.
But she's super hot.
But she's hot, and she keeps saying things.
And into astrology, so like the hot girls are.
and keeps saying things like, I want to give you an anarchy of pleasure, which Veer.
Mm-hmm. And Jupiter's rising.
His knees buckle as any man would, and he goes to Ivanova for something else. He's there for the other reasons, but he's like, hey, while I'm here, can I ask you a question? And Ivanova, not knowing the nature of the question, is like, sure, Veer, you're a nice guy, ask away. And he's like, what does a woman want when it comes to sex? That's basically what he says.
When it comes to...
Oh yeah, it was that. It was the fingers interlocking, which
makes sense because he's got 6.
That's true. He has a lot more than the one. That's right. Yes, I mean, I think we use that occasionally, not as personally, but like people sometimes use that to mean sex. But it makes more sense with the Centauri. It's actually a lot more represent. If anything, we don't have enough fingers to really.
There's
make
a lot
work.
of digits at work here.
But it's a nice payoff though, because at the end of the scene, because Ivanova is super uncomfortable the whole time, at the end of the scene she sort of naturally puts her hands together and then sort of notices she's doing it and goes, ugh, and sort of puts her hands away. But
Ivanova is such a prude.
Yeah, this is such a delightful scene, though. The part that stuck out to me, just in terms of being funny, is he tries to say that he's never really had sex before, and he just kind of says, "Oh, I've been to one," and she goes, "Oh, you mean first base?" And he explains, no, we have a 6-scale system with Centauri, and he just says that 5 is like, because he says, oh, 1's like, 5 is like, oh, and he said that, I was like, what's 6 then? 5 sounds like it's already hitting home. What's 6? If that's
6
what 5
is the closer, I imagine.
So yes, he tries to explain more of this, and Ivanova's like, no, I don't need to hear. Like, enough of this. Just says everyone's different. Just,
just make her laugh, be sincere.
Yes,
goes a long way.
I agree with what she says. Maybe don't give him that advice in this case, given what she ends up saying later in the episode. But she didn't actually say that. I'm just throwing in a joke. But yeah, it's a delightful scene. I think when you have such delightful characters as the characters on this show, where at this point they're so well defined, when you get pairings that you don't normally get, like in this case Veer and Ivanova, you have this magic of like, oh, both of their awkward tendencies clashing just makes for some fun comedy.
Yeah, they are both pretty awkward. Huh?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how silly the conversation is or how silly the topic is in this case. It's just like, we're adults who can't talk about sex. So fun, delightful. That's the perfect word for it.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that, I know Veer's kind of nerdy, and don't really expect a love story centered around Veer, given what we've seen of him so far. Like, he's just been this nerdy, work-obsessed guy. Kind of like the shoehorned love story that they're trying to force onto Ivanova. Like, no, not accepting this. But like, he is still kissing her at the end of the episode.
True. We don't expect him to become emperor either, so I wouldn't rule out a romance. I don't expect a big romance plot, but it wouldn't surprise me if he meets someone towards the end of the show it kind of implies like, hey, this might be the one. This might be who he ends up with, kind of thing. Some
Centauri activist female for the Narn.
Or maybe if it's a Centauri, maybe he'll see someone from another race that'll.
Maybe he'll fall in love with the Narn lady. Maybe Jakar's old, whatever she was, I can't remember her. Natoth?
Oh yeah, Natoth, yes.
We know, Jakar's not interested. He likes Earth women.
Oh yes, we know that, yes.
Although maybe he's celibate now, because he's elevated to this.
I don't think he's celibate.
Higher being.
I don't think he's celibate, but I do think he's too busy to, he's not out playboying. He's not, picking up ladies at the bar or whatever he did before.
Right. I like the callback, because we had, you mentioned a callback for something like 2 episodes ago, but there is a callback to the Narn blood oath, which we heard in the Deathwalker episode.
Oh yeah.
When they used it against Sinclair.
No, you're right. It is a nice callback. I think, if anything, the only thing I think maybe they should have added into this is because we know that Narn are a large part of the security team right now. It'd have been nice to see like them kind of help protect maybe Veer, assuming he was the target at the time, from a potential Narn assassin. I think that might have been an interesting thing.
He was pretty much on his own a lot, but the security is limited still, isn't it?
Yeah. Also, was Zach wearing like a funky new uniform? Because he was the one that told Ivanova about the suspicious manifest.
I forgot to check
thing.
if other crewmen were wearing the uniform.
No, they weren't. They were wearing the classic, which I think makes sense. Delenn didn't have, a couple hundred made.
Yeah.
She had the four key characters made, and
I like the moment with Zach though, when he was on the bridge. He's like, I just never get to see this part of the ship. It's overwhelming, makes you feel naked. And then again, Ivanova's like, ooh, don't say naked. It reminds me of a dream that everybody has.
Yeah, that was another naked jab. Not intentional on his part, obviously. He's just been poetic. He's just saying, He's doing his best little Carl Sagan impression of like sort of talking about the vastness of space.
Billions and billions. Yeah, but I like Zach a lot. It's good to see him have a little moment of acting.
It's funny,
I do think he's a good actor.
They did this thing with him where they gave him this plot where he kind of gets roped into the Night Watch, and that was very much his first proper plot. But because that kind of like by the end of that, it kind of earned him his place because he made the right choices and he kind of saw himself as someone who can be trusted. It's kind of interesting now to see what they do with him in this role where he's this trusted guy on the ship that they can use, and so curious. I'm curious to see if he gets more spotlight episodes, or maybe like an episode like this, like Veer got later down the line, or well, he's just got maybe another running plot of the Night Watch one where it's just a little bit breadcrumbs throughout. Whatever it may be, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I hope so. I really like seeing Jeff Conaway like get some acting moments in the show, because I do think he was really good, and he has a very unfortunate like story in real life. So, I just like seeing him do something great.
He's the anti-Poochie because he was wanted and given like a plot line that led to more plot lines.
The anti-Poochie, yeah.
So no, that's good. I mean, the episode, we never really outright just said do we like the episode or not at the start, and I think I like it. I think it has a couple of weird problems, like them not addressing like the cliffhanger of the dagger, and just like no one talks about the fact that is the Narn alive or dead? Is he arrested?
Yeah.
No one mentions anything. When
I thought maybe she would be arrested, but then she was like, nothing came of that.
Veer,
going home.
When he goes to see her, they never mention the incident. Or, they talk about, obviously, they have very different beliefs, but they never mention, you refused to kill that Narn.
What happened in that room?
Yeah. It felt weird. It felt like just everyone was not talking about it. It was odd. The only other thing to mention plot-wise going forward is that Ivanova is continuing to use this alias that Veer made up to help more Narn escape. And they'll do it as long as the Centauri don't notice that it's a fake person. And she used
photoshopped.
Yeah.
Not Sinclair. Sheridan.
Yes.
I can't believe I'm still doing that.
She photoshopped Sheridan as a Centauri with the big hair. So, and she's like, "Hey, I can make a difference. It doesn't all have to just be, logging in cargo, like manifests and."
Yeah. I wonder if I'm still making the switch between Sheridan and Sinclair because their initials are the same. Like JMS couldn't help me out a little bit here.
Even
Jeffrey
GMS.
Sinclair and John Sheridan.
I mean, even GMS, if you take out the M.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's why. Mm-hmm.
Do we have middle names for
He thinks he's the captain, huh?
He's the captain now.
Look at me.
He's going to be the captain again with the reboot. If anyone didn't see, we did an extra bonus video talking about the reboot news. If you didn't check that out, or you missed it, it'll be in the playlist right before this one, or right before the one before this. So check that out. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I don't know if we have middle names for Sinclair or Sheridan, but I wonder if they begin with M. He's not that vain, but he's just enough that he wants the main character to have his initials. Just enough.
It's a little bit like, okay, George Lucas, did you name him Luke because you saw yourself in this character? You wanted to make yourself the hero.
Yes, and we all know why Han Solo was called Han Solo, because he was alone that one day when he was registering for a thing.
You haven't watched that movie.
I haven't, but I've heard about this scene and it's still stupid.
Yeah, the scene is dumb. The movie's all right though. I thought it was pretty.
I'm not judging
decent.
The whole movie. I'm judging that one, because it's the thing that I hate in prequels is that we have to give like a meaning to something that didn't have a we have to have a story behind how this thing existed. I'm surprised there wasn't a backstory. It's because I think in the Millennium Falcon there's like dice hanging or something. I'm surprised there's not like a story in the movie about how he got the dice or something. Stupid shit like that prequels do, where they have to give everything like a backstory or meaning. It just makes it all
I didn't
stupid.
even know those dice were there until the Last Jedi.
Because they emphasized on it. They yeah.
There's the thing that like Luke gives Leia at the end of that.
That's one of those
to remember Han.
That's one of those details that obviously it's in that movie because as kids, like the ultra nerds, that's one of those details that they obsessed about. Like, we know the make of Han's gun,
I missed
and
it, yeah.
the dice that he has, you know, and then it's used as a plot
I missed
point.
a lot of things though. Like I must have watched that movie like, I don't know, maybe 100 times, the first one, and I didn't know that there was a stormtrooper that bonked its head. And
Oh, really?
now I can't unsee it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I knew that.
I didn't know until someone pointed it out. I was like, what? It's always been there?
Yeah, it's always been there. That was one of those like early bits of like internet trivia for movies. It was like, if you're watching Star Wars, there's the stormtrooper who bunks his head.
Yeah, I missed it.
It might be out of the redone versions, but apparently there was and I've never heard this, but I remember hearing that at one point you can hear Mark Hamill shout the word Carrie instead of Leia. But I imagine they probably removed that for the later versions when they redid it, just because it would be so easy to take that out.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, good episode because of the development with Sheridan and Delenn.
I mean, I would say it's a good Vera episode. There's just a couple of weird things in the plot, and it's frustrating that no one seems to. So they all feel a bit dumb because no one considers that she was the target. So it ends up sort of coming down to more of, I'd say, a B tier episode, but you know, a good B tier episode. But
With one really great scene.
which is the almost
Maybe
kiss,
two.
I presume.
Yeah.
What I will say is that I was skimming ahead, not looking at details, but just at the IMDb ratings for the episodes, and there's some big ones. There's a big two-parter coming up down the line. Finale, of course, has a big rating, but there is one that's pretty low rating in the 60s, and I actually
You don't see those very much.
yeah, but I recognize the name, and the reason why I recognize the name is because when the reboot news dropped, last week at the time of recording, well, actually it was the start of this week, I saw someone say, they're conflicted about the reboot news, blah, blah, blah. But hey, JMS is the one writing it. But then also said, and JMS wrote this episode. The title of the episode I noticed was the one that had the low rating. Something about In the Grey or Someone Stole the Grey or something. I'll check so people know what I'm talking about for the fans. But
So it's about the Grey Council?
I have no idea if it's about the Grey Council.
Or is it about wolves?
It's called Grey 17 is Missing. That's it. Grey 17 is Missing.
It's probably about a ship then.
It's probably part of the station because that's what they name parts of the station, right?
Oh yeah, you're right. I
Brown
guess there's the Grey sector.
Yeah, there's a grey sector, yeah. There's a brown sector, a grey sector,
Green.
yeah. If I was to guess, grey sounds like it would be like the
Mechanical.
the technical areas. That would be my guess, but I mean I could be wrong. Which could be if a section of that part goes missing, you would think hopefully not life support was in that section.
Or the heaters, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a big state. I assume stuff like life support and heating is probably like all over the ship. There's probably different hubs for that all over the place, but
Probably.
just in case they have to abandon a section of the station, because that is space. They have to build it with the idea that they might have to abandon a section or seal a section off. So,
Or they might get blown up.
yes, I mean the previous Babylon stations didn't set a good track record, exactly, did it?
No. Yeah. I mean, there haven't been too many bad episodes. I know we don't really like TKO or the Grail, and whichever one had Franklin be all weird with the lady.
There's only a few kind of like below solid episodes in the show, and certainly in this season there's been very little below a certain.
No, I don't think there's been a dud.
So yeah, I would. It's funny actually. We cracked a joke. We were talking about the reboot. That they could have done a sequel series called Babylon 6, and someone did actually feel the need to correct in the comments to go, no, there can't be a Babylon 6 because it says that Babylon 5 is the last of the Babylon stations. I'm like, we know that, but it is a reboot after all. If they want to change that, they can. It's not like
Yeah. I mean, the idea was whatever.
There's also always the idea that the narration for that was like from before they built Babylon 6. Like it was the last station until it wasn't. There's always a chance for another one. I mean, it's not impossible. But also, it wasn't that serious a comment. It was just a joke. I've got, call it Babylon 6. It's like calling, like, after Ocean's 11, you go to Ocean's 12. Oh, wait, they actually did that.
We love our comments, though. Keep them coming.
Oh, we do. Well, what was funny about that video, though, is that clearly attracted some people who weren't regular viewers of the reviews. Some of them were totally new, who just like found it because of the news.
So they don't know who Poochie is.
They don't know who Poochie is, and it was just fun seeing some of the variety of comments. I won't get into some of the more heated ones that were not worth discussing.
It's like some people just really don't. It's like they watch a different show.
They don't understand the themes and the topics and the ideas that were in the original show in the first place, and why they should still be there.
The cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
Sometimes.
People who don't understand that X-Men was an allegory for minorities and gay people and things like that, and or that Star Trek.
Why do they have to make it all woke now?
That science
So
fiction
dumb.
was pretty much always woke. It's kind of part of the point of science fiction in many ways, but whatever.
In many ways.
So.
Except for
Hey-ho.
maybe Battlefield Earth.
I'm not saying every example, but most of the good ones tend to be.
Or Assassin 33 AD.
Star Trek
really
was
really fun sci-fi.
But by 60s standards, Star Trek, the original series, was pretty damn woke. Obviously, it may not feel that way now, but at the time, it definitely was.
Oh yeah, totally.
So, hey. But yeah, there you go. That is this episode of Babylon 5. Let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Speculate on what Phase 6 is of the Centauri 6 scale.
No. Well, don't put it in the comments.
Just don't be too descriptive. Say it in a pleasant, public, acceptable manner.
Maybe it's like a nice boat ride or something.
Okay.
You share pudding snacks together.
6 is the come down, is what you're saying. 6 is the let's relax after the.
That's when everyone's smoking a cigarette. The sheets are placed over the genitals.
After the passionate sex, that's the number 6 is this is the time after where we calm down and watch some, I don't know, talk shows or something. As the movie Replica taught me, is you have a talk show on.
That's a great movie. Well, now in that case, you have to have your sex bikini on.
That's true, yes. And you have to have sex during Letterman, because that's when everyone's in the mood, is during late night talk shows. This is getting far too inside jokey because no one else has seen Replica. It's a Riff Tracks movie for anyone, from the director of Birdemic, so seek it out.
Highly recommend. It's a pretty short one too. It's easy watch.
And it's on Tubi for free if you really want to go find it. It's a terrible movie, obviously, but
it's great terrible though.
It is great terrible.
Much like Birdemic.
Yeah. So let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. You can support us by doing all those things because they all help. You can also support us financially. Can't they, Tara?
That's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MildFuzzTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of other shows we do. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these reviews 6 days early. And some other shows you get a day early. And check it out. Thank you.
You know what I liked about that is that I made a point not to interrupt you, not to throw you off in any way. Just to sort of analyze how the plug voice was throughout the whole thing, and you do have a cadence that you sort of have for the whole thing.
That's right, Peter.
That's my new ringtone. Let's go with that on a loop. That's right, Peter. That's right,
shit.
Peter.
Sorry.
That's right, Peter. That's right,
Keep
Peter.
cussing like a sailor.
That's right, Peter. I'll just have it respond to me. I'll just ask it questions. It'll just respond with, "That's right, Peter."
Whenever we have a disagreement on a rating for a film.
I'll have this little soundbite, queued up. That's right, Peter. All right, yeah, check out the Atomic Cinema Experiment. It's a sci-fi movie podcast that we do over in Male Fuzz Movies, so go check that out. It's also on your audio podcast feeds of choice. But that'll do us, though, so thank you very much for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away the home world.